Ever feel like you're wrestling with your own head? Like there are these difficult feelings, like be anxiety, sadness, frustration, and the harder you try to push them away, the more stubborn they seem to become.
Oh, absolutely. It's like they dig their heels in.
Exactly. You feel stuck, right? Like you're controlled by this inner stuff, maybe even held back from doing things that actually matter to you.
Yeah.
So what if, just maybe, the very way we're trying to fix or get rid of our feelings is actually making things worse?
It's a really common, deeply human experience, that internal battle. We're wired to solve problems, to move away from discomfort.
Sure, it makes sense.
And it feels so intuitive to just apply that same logic to our inner lives. But you're right, when it comes to our thoughts and feelings, that problem-solving instinct, well, it can lead us down a really difficult path.
Absolutely. So welcome everyone to a deep dive into navigating this messy, often imperfect landscape of our inner world.
Yeah, messy is a good word for it sometimes.
Totally. And today we're focusing on finding peace, not by somehow magically eliminating difficult feelings, which, let's be honest, often feels impossible, right?
Right, if only it were that easy.
But instead, by learning how to live with the full spectrum of our emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly, and still build a life that feels rich, meaningful, and really matters to you.
And we've been digging into some really powerful insights, drawing from approaches that look at acceptance and commitment and ways to manage emotions dialectically.
Okay.
These aren't about telling you what you should feel, not at all. It's more about offering practical ways to understand why we struggle internally and equipping you with some really concrete skills to handle those challenging moments differently.
So it's like unlocking a new operating manual for your own mind and heart, maybe.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Our mission today is to unpack these ideas, pull out the most valuable, applicable nuggets, and really understand how we can use them, how we can feel less hijacked by our inner experiences and, more aligned with the person we want to be and the life we want to live. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start right there. Is that fundamental issue you brought up right at the start. Our default setting, our kind of natural inclination to fight against unpleasant internal experiences.
Yeah, the fight or flight thing, but turned inwards.
Kind of, yeah. Our brains and language, they evolved primarily as tools for solving problems in the external world. And they're incredibly effective at that.
Definitely.
If there's something unwanted outside of you, a predator, a broken tool, maybe some contaminated food, it's a problem.
Right, problem identified.
And the solution is typically pretty clear. Change it, get rid of it, or avoid it. See a threat, you run. Find something harmful, you toss it.
Problem solving 101. Works wonders out there.
Exactly. For the external world, it's brilliant.
And here's where it gets, really interesting. We take that incredibly successful strategy for dealing with external threats and nuisances, and we instinctively try to apply it to our internal world. What happens when the unwanted thing isn't a bear or like a rusty nail, but a painful memory or a persistent worry, a wave of intense sadness, or that surge of anxiety?
Precisely. We apply the get rid of it, change it, avoid it strategy to our own thoughts, feelings, memories, physical sensations, urges, all that internal stuff.
And that leads to, what was the term?
It leads to a phenomenon known as experiential avoidance.
Experiential avoidance. Okay. It sounds a bit technical, maybe.
It does, but the core idea is actually pretty simple. It's just the attempt to avoid, suppress, escape from, or otherwise get rid of unwanted private experiences.
Right. Anything that feels bad inside, basically.
And the more formal definition that came up in the material is the tendency to try to alter the form, the frequency, or even how sensitive you are to negative private experiences.
Like emotions, thoughts, memories.
Exactly. Sensations, urges, images, all those things that happen inside our skin. And here's the kicker. Even when those attempts are ultimately harmful or ineffective in the long run.
Ugh. That last part feels really crucial, even when those attempts cause psychological and behavioral harm.
Yes.
We get locked into these strategies, often desperately, right? Just to get some temporary relief from a difficult feeling.
Just a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the strategies themselves end up costing us something significant, maybe making the situation even worse over time.
So think about this for yourself, listening right now. What have you tried to do to get rid of difficult feelings? The anxiety, sadness, anger, shame.
What's your go-to move?
Maybe you've tried just pushing the thoughts away, bottling up the feelings, endless distraction, scrolling, binge watching.
Or arguing with your own mind, trying to reason your way out of a feeling.
Yeah, or maybe even turning to less healthy coping mechanisms. Things like excessive drinking or isolating yourself or just completely zoning out.
Yeah.
Did any of that ever make the feeling just vanish permanently? Did it work like magic? Probably not, right?
Not usually. No. Maybe for a little bit, but it comes back.
Exactly. And then the really important question becomes, what has this constant effort, this internal struggle, actually cost you?
The cost.
Think about the sheer amount of time and energy you've spent battling your own inner state. Just the exhaustion of it.
Yeah, it's draining.
What about relationships you've maybe pulled away from because being close felt too vulnerable, too risky?
Or opportunities you've missed because anxiety screamed, you can't do it, or sadness just kept you stuck on the couch.
Right. Looking back, honestly, has this fight brought you any closer to the kind of life you actually want to be living? The person you truly want to be?
That's a tough question.
It is. But the material strongly suggests that often the struggle against the feeling is far more costly and debilitating than the feeling itself would have been if you weren't fighting it so hard.
It's like being stuck in quicksand.
Exactly. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink.
Which starts to point towards a really challenging but maybe potentially liberating idea. Maybe the core problem isn't actually having the difficult feelings, but our determined effort to control them.
Yes, exactly. The sources really frame this as a core insight. Control is the problem. We often live under this deeply ingrained illusion that we should have, or could have, direct control over our internal world.
Like, we should be able to just flick a switch and turn off anxiety. Or hit delete on a bad memory.
Precisely. That we should be able to just switch off a feeling or delete a thought on command.
And you can see how little control we actually have with just simple thought experiments, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
Like, try not to think of your absolute favorite type of ice cream right now. Whatever flavor just popped into your head. Just spend the next 5 seconds actively trying not to think about it. Go.
And it's probably right there, front and center, isn't it? Maybe even more vivid than before.
Totally. Or try this one. For the next 30 seconds, actively try not to feel your left foot. Don't just ignore it. Try to make the sensation completely disappear.
Good luck with that.
Impossible, right? It's still there. You can still feel it, maybe even more intensely because you're focusing on not feeling it.
Right.
How about trying to deliberately forget something embarrassing that happened this morning? Can you just mentally hit delete?
Nope. The memory buffer doesn't work like that.
Or deciding right now to fall madly in love with the next person you see just because you tell yourself to.
Yeah. If only relationships were that simple. These everyday examples really show us how limited our direct control is over these private experiences, our thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories.
And yet, we continue to pour energy into trying to force them to change. Why? Why do we keep banging our heads against this wall?
Well, the sources highlight a few key reasons. One, as we kind of touched on, control strategies can offer temporary relief. Sometimes.
Okay, like a quick fix.
Exactly. Distracting yourself might dull the anxiety in that moment. Suppressing anger might prevent a confrontation right now.
So you get a little reward for it.
Precisely. That temporary relief reinforces the behavior, even if it doesn't work long term, and might even make things worse later.
Makes sense. What else?
2, society often models and encourages emotional avoidance. Think about the common advice we hear all the time.
Oh yeah, just cheer up.
Don't dwell on the past.
Get over it. Be positive.
Exactly. We're constantly given the message that having difficult feelings is somehow a sign of weakness or a problem to be solved and hidden away. Like you're failing if you feel bad.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. And third, there's this powerful but often incorrect belief that our emotions and thoughts cause and control our behavior.
Like, I feel anxious, therefore I cannot speak.
Yes, this makes us feel like we must get rid of the bad feeling before we can possibly act differently or move forward. I can't speak up in the meeting until this anxiety is gone. Or
Sure.
I can't possibly look for a new job while I feel this depressed.
We think the feeling is the gatekeeper to action.
Exactly. And this raises a really, really important question.
Yeah.
What if that belief isn't actually true?
Oh.
What if you could feel difficult emotions, the anxiety, the sadness, the anger, the self-doubt, and still take effective action towards what matters to you?
So, feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing?
Essentially, yes. What if you could give that presentation with the anxiety riding alongside you? What if you could start that job search while feeling low?
That feels like a huge shift in perspective.
It is. Because instead of fighting, suppressing, or trying to control, what if the path to peace involves making room for these experiences? allowing them to be there.
Okay, making room. That sounds different, less confrontational.
It is. And this brings us to the core concepts of acceptance and mindfulness.
Right, you hear those words a lot. What do they really mean in this context?
So at its heart, mindfulness is simply about paying attention, being aware of your thoughts, feelings, sensations, your actions, whatever is happening in the present moment.
Just noticing.
Just noticing. And here's the really crucial part. Doing this without judging or criticizing whatever it is you notice.
The non-judgment part. That sounds hard.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
And radical acceptance builds on that.
Yeah.
It means tolerating something, a feeling, a situation, a memory, a physical sensation, without judging it or trying to change it in that specific moment.
So if I feel really angry, radical acceptance isn't about saying the anger is good.
Not at all. It doesn't mean you like it or agree with it or condone it if it's related to a harmful situation. It simply means acknowledging that right now this anger is here. It's the reality of this present moment, however unpleasant it might feel.
Okay, acknowledging what is without adding extra layers of this shouldn't be.
Precisely. Because the material points out how our judgment is often the engine of our suffering. When we add those layers, I shouldn't feel this way, this thought is terrible, this situation is unfair, and I can't stand it, we actually block ourselves from simply observing what is happening.
And that judgment keeps us stuck.
It keeps us trapped, either rehashing a painful past, why did that happen, or catastrophizing about a potential future, what if this awful thing happens, instead of being present and able to act effectively right now.
Okay, so mindfulness is the tool to step back from that judgment.
Yes, it helps us step back from that constant stream of commentary and judgment. And it helps us connect with something the sources sometimes call self as context, or maybe more intuitively, the observing self.
The observing self, tell me more about that.
Okay, imagine it like this. There's a part of you that is the noticer, pure awareness, the part that witnesses all your experiences.
Okay.
This observing self is separate from the thoughts, feelings, and sensations themselves. Think of your experiences, your thoughts, emotions, body sensations like the weather.
Constantly changing, right. Sunny 1 minute, stormy the next.
Exactly, always shifting. But the observing self is like the sky. It's the vast, unchanging space in which all that weather happens.
Ah, I like that. The sky isn't changed by the clouds or the rain.
It just holds them. It contains them. The sky remains constant, even as the weather patterns move through it.
Okay, so how do we connect with that sky part?
The sources offer a really simple way to practice connecting with this through an observing self exercise. It's something like this.
Okay.
First, bring your attention to something internal. A thought, a feeling, a sensation, a memory. Let's just call it X.
Got it. Maybe a worry thought.
Perfect. So as you notice X, that worry thought, become aware that you are noticing it.
Okay, I'm noticing the worry.
Good. Now recognize.
Yeah.
There is X, the experience, the worry. And there you are, the part of you that is observing it. There's the thought and there's the you noticing the thought. There's the feeling and the you noticing the feeling. See the separation.
Yeah, okay. There's the worry and there's me watching the worry.
Exactly. Now, notice that X changes. Thoughts come and go, don't they?
Yeah, they don't usually stick around forever unless I grab onto them.
Right. Feelings shift. You might feel worried now, maybe calm later, then maybe annoyed. Sensations in your body move or lessen. Your body itself is constantly changing. The cells making you up today are different from years ago. Your roles change constantly. Parent, worker, friend, client.
Okay, so the content is always changing.
Yes. But the you that notices X, that pure awareness, the observing self, that doesn't change. It's the constant background against which all these changes are happening, like the sky.
That feels grounding, actually. Realizing I'm not just the worry, I'm the space the worry is happening in.
Exactly. This practice helps you realize that you are larger than your experiences.
Yeah.
You are the space of consciousness in which they arise and pass away.
Okay.
The sources use another really powerful metaphor here. Think of your mind with its constant stream of thoughts, judgments, stories, like it's creating a heavily edited, maybe quite biased documentary of you.
Okay. Often titled, This Is Who I Am.
Right, totally. And the problem is we tend to fuse with this documentary. We believe we are this collection of thoughts, feelings, stories, and memories presented in the film.
We mistake the movie for the real thing.
Precisely. But just like a documentary film about Africa isn't actually the continent of Africa itself.
Right, it's just a representation.
The documentary of you isn't you. It's just a production, often a biased one, playing in your mind. The observing self is the part of you that is experiencing the documentary. It's the consciousness witnessing the film unfold. You are the watcher, not the film reel itself.
Wow. Okay. That separation is key,
Hmm.
which leads into diffusion. Is that related?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Building directly on this is thought diffusion. If thoughts are like the words or images playing in that mental documentary, diffusion is about seeing them as just that words, images, sounds, not necessarily reality, and definitely not commands you have to obey.
Because thoughts can be really sticky, can't they? Like hooks.
Incredibly sticky,
Yeah.
like little fish hooks that easily pull us into believing their content or acting on them automatically without even questioning it. Diffusion helps us observe those thoughts without getting hooked and dragged around by them.
How do you do that? How do you unhook?
The sources suggest some wonderful visualizations for this.
Yeah.
One is imagining your thoughts are like leaves floating down the stream. You just sit on the bank, watch the leaves drift by. You notice what's written on them. Maybe one says, "I'm not good enough." Another says, "This is too hard." But you just let them float on by without jumping onto a leaf and getting carried downstream.
You don't engage with the leaf, just observe it passing.
Exactly. Or another one. Imagine your thoughts are clouds drifting across the vast sky, your observing self. Some are dark and stormy, some are light and fluffy. They just pass through. You don't have to chase them or fight them.
I like the sky metaphor coming back.
Me too. Another visualization is writing words or thoughts in the sand at the beach.
And letting the waves wash them away.
Right. The aim isn't to erase the thought or make it go away forever. It's about creating some distance, some space between you, the observer, and the thought. Seeing it as an event in your mind, like saying to yourself, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough, rather than fusing with it as a statement of absolute fact, I am not good enough.
That little shift in language makes a big difference. I'm having the thought versus I am.
It really does. It highlights that thoughts are just thoughts, mental events.
This connects beautifully with another metaphor you mentioned earlier, the idea that the mind is like a radio.
Yes. Our minds are constantly broadcasting 24/7, nonstop chatter, and often the main station seems to be stuck on radio doom and gloom.
Haha. Playing all the greatest hits of past mistakes, future catastrophes, self-criticism, worries.
Exactly. The full playlist of misery. Now, if we're constantly tuned into that station, listening intently, hanging on every word, and believing everything it broadcasts as gospel truth.
It's going to lead to a lot of suffering, stress, anxiety, feeling down.
Absolutely. Diffusion and mindfulness, they allow us to notice that the radio is playing. We can recognize what station it's tuned to. There's good old radio doom and gloom again. But we don't have to get completely lost in the broadcast.
You can notice it's just noise. Maybe turn down the volume.
Yes. We can acknowledge it's there, maybe even thank our mind for trying to keep us safe in its own weird way, and then choose to shift our attention elsewhere, maybe to what we're actually doing in the present moment, or towards something that aligns with our values.
It's so important, though, to remember that non-judgment piece in mindfulness practice, right? Because it's easy to get frustrated when your mind wanders.
Oh, absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
When you try to practice, say, focusing on your breath, or just paying attention to the sounds around you, your mind will wander. That's literally what minds do. They think, they plan, they remember, they worry.
So the instruction isn't to have a perfectly quiet, empty mind.
Definitely not. That's usually impossible and sets you up for failure. The practice isn't about stopping the wandering. It's about noticing it. The practice is simply noticing. When your attention is drifted off, gently acknowledging what distracted you. Thinking about dinner. And then gently, kindly, without frustration or self-criticism, guiding your attention back to your chosen anchor, whether that's your breath or the sensations in your body or the task you're trying to do mindfully.
So every time you notice you've wandered and bring it back, that's actually the practice working.
That is the practice. That's a rep. Strengthening the muscle of attention and non-judgmental awareness. It's not a failure. It's the core of the exercise.
And difficult feelings will inevitably show up during practice too, right? Like impatience, boredom, maybe anxiety about doing it wrong.
For sure. And the instruction is exactly the same.
Oh,
Notice
yeah.
them without judgment. Oh, there's impatience. Feeling bored right now. Acknowledge the feeling's presence without needing to push it away or get rid of it, and then gently redirect your attention back to your focus. You allow the feeling to be there in the background, like a cloud passing through the sky.
Okay, so beyond just basic mindful attention, the sources mention other specific mindfulness practices.
Yes, they touch on practices designed to cultivate different qualities. Things like mindful breathing, where you might focus intently on the physical sensations of breath. There's self-compassion meditation, which involves actively directing kindness and understanding toward yourself, especially when you're suffering or feel inadequate.
That sounds important. We're often so hard on ourselves.
Incredibly hard. And also loving kindness meditation, where you practice directing feelings of warmth, kindness, and well-wishing outwards towards loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and ultimately all beings.
And mindfulness isn't just for sitting on a cushion, right? It's about bringing it into everyday life.
Absolute critical point. It's not just about formal meditation. It's about bringing that quality of present moment, non-judgmental awareness to everyday activities. The sources give a great example using just a single sultana or raisin, really exploring it with all your senses. Before eating it, noticing its texture, its smell, its wrinkles, then the sensation and taste in your mouth. It sounds simple, but it's a powerful way to practice focus and observation.
So you could do that with anything: eating, walking, washing dishes.
Exactly. Walking mindfully, noticing the sensation of your feet on the ground, the movement of your body. Doing chores mindfully, fully engaging with a task instead of letting your mind race elsewhere. It's about focusing your attention, letting go of distractions and judgments when they arise, applying radical acceptance to whatever comes up, like frustration with the chore, and bringing your wise mind, that balance of reason and emotion, to the activity.
Okay, so cultivating acceptance and mindfulness is huge for changing our relationship with difficult feelings. But what about when those feelings are just incredibly intense, like overwhelming?
Great question.
Yeah.
Because even with acceptance, feelings can sometimes feel like a tidal wave, right? Just crashing over you.
Yeah.
In those moments when the intensity is really high, that's where distress tolerance skills come into play.
Distress tolerance. Okay, what are those?
These are skills specifically designed to help you get through incredibly difficult situations, maybe even crisis moments, and ride out those intense emotional waves without acting impulsively in ways that would make things worse in the long run.
So it's about surviving the storm without wrecking the ship.
That's a perfect analogy. The key is you typically use these skills when you can't immediately solve the underlying problem causing the distress, or when the emotion is just too intense right now to think clearly or problem solve effectively. You need to survive the moment first, so you can deal with the problem later when things calm down.
And how is this different from that experiential avoidance we talked about earlier? Isn't avoiding the feeling?
That's a crucial distinction. Experiential avoidance is driven by the goal of getting rid of the feeling permanently, often because we believe we can't stand it. Distress tolerance isn't trying to eliminate the feeling forever. It's about getting through the intense peak of the emotions safely, accepting that it's there right now, knowing that emotional intensity will naturally decrease on its own eventually, but doing what you need to do to avoid making things worse while it's high.
So it's not about avoiding the feeling, but avoiding destructive actions fueled by the feeling.
Exactly. Avoiding actions like damaging relationships, harming yourself, using substances, or making impulsive decisions that create more problems down the line.
Okay. The sources probably listed some of those common but ultimately unhelpful coping strategies.
They did, and they clearly laid out the costs. Things like spending excessive time ruminating, just going over and over past pain or future worries.
That just digs you deeper, right? Fuels depression and anxiety.
Absolutely. It costs you the present moment. Or isolating yourself, it might feel safer temporarily, protecting you from potential judgment or conflict.
But it costs you crucial connection, support, and perspective.
Right. Then there are more overtly harmful things like engaging in self-harm, unsafe sexual behavior, problematic substance use, or other high-risk activities.
Things that give a fleeting sense of relief or intensity, maybe?
That have potentially devastating long-term consequences for your health, safety, and relationships. Also mentioned we're using food destructively, like binging or restricting or just completely avoiding dealing with the actual causes of your problems.
These might numb the pain for a second.
For a second, maybe. But they cause significant harm and often leave you feeling much worse off in the aftermath, creating a cycle.
So instead of those, what are the healthier alternatives? The distress tolerance skills.
Right. One really useful strategy to prepare for those moments of intense emotion, to help you pause before reacting impulsively, is called REST. It's an acronym.
Okay, R-E-S-T. What does it stand for?
R is for relax. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Try to deliberately relax your muscles. This helps ground you and activate your body's natural calming response.
Okay, first step, breathe.
E is for evaluate. Assess the situation as objectively as possible. Are you in actual immediate physical danger? Is the threat real and concrete right now? Or is the intensity largely being driven by your emotion rather than the facts of the situation?
Checking in with reality versus the feeling.
S is for voin. Set an intention. Make a conscious decision right there in that moment to use a healthy coping skill instead of acting on that impulsive urge or falling back into an old, unhelpful pattern.
Okay, choosing a different path.
And T is for take action. Do something different. Act on your intention by actually using one of the healthier coping skills we're about to discuss.
REST. Relax, evaluate, set intention, take action. That seems like a useful pause button.
It really can be. And related to this, acknowledging your personal triggers is also incredibly powerful.
Knowing what sets you off.
Exactly. Knowing the specific situations, people, times of day, or even internal states, like feeling tired or hungry, that usually lead to intense emotions or those impulsive urges. If you know your triggers, you can anticipate them.
And have a plan ready.
Yes. Have a plan ready. Maybe even write down a list of skills you can deploy immediately when that trigger hits, perhaps starting with the rest strategy itself.
Okay, so what are some of those skills we can take action with?
The sources detail several categories. One major one is distraction techniques.
Just distracting yourself? Doesn't that sound like avoidance?
Again, it's about the purpose. The goal here isn't to avoid the feeling forever, but to temporarily shift your focus away from the overwhelming emotion just long enough for the intensity to come down naturally. Emotions are like waves. They rise, peak, and fall. Distraction helps you ride out the peak without getting swept away and doing something harmful.
Okay, surviving the wave. What kind of distractions work?
Lots of things. Engaging in activities is a big one. Things like exercise, which can be a fantastic way to channel that intense, maybe destructive energy in a positive way.
Yeah, burn it off.
Doing chores, believe it or not. Cooking something nice. Playing with pets, their unconditional affection can be really grounding. Going for a drive or a walk, just changing your scenery. Planning a fun trip for the future.
Simple pleasures, too.
Absolutely. Even momentary, simple, harmless pleasures can work. Eating a favorite food mindfully. Chocolate or ice cream were specifically mentioned as examples. Getting a massage, if that's accessible. Even just taking a nap sometimes, if you're exhausted and overwhelmed.
What about using places?
Good idea. Visit a museum, spend time at a park or somewhere in nature, go to a mall or coffee shop, and just people watch, shifting focus externally.
Engaging your mind.
Yes. Creative pursuits can be great distractions. Try learning a new language, singing along loudly to music, playing an instrument, writing poetry, journaling, fiction, whatever works for you.
Connecting with others.
Social connection. If it feels supportive and not stressful in that moment, call a trusted family member or friend. Maybe join a support group meeting if that's part of your routine.
Even simple mental tasks.
Yeah, even simple mental tasks like making lists can be surprisingly effective at diverting attention. The sources had fun examples like listing all the movies you want to see, or celebrities you'd like to be friends with, or things you want to do before you die. Anything to occupy your mind temporarily.
It's about finding something, anything, to shift focus for a bit.
Exactly. And the sources provide some really relatable examples of these working in practice. There was Lucy, who felt urges to self-harm when overwhelmed.
Okay.
But she learned to use a red marker to draw lines on her skin instead. It created a similar visual representation of her pain, fulfilled a certain urge, but without causing lasting physical damage. It bought her crucial time for the intensity to pass.
That's clever. A harm reduction approach.
Yes. And Karen, who battled intense loneliness and painful memories. She found that taking a long walk in the park while listening to upbeat music really helped shift her focus away from the internal pain and re-engage with the world around her.
Changing the input.
Right. Joel used fantasy rehearsal to cope with intense, intrusive memories of being criticized, instead of getting stuck replaying the painful event over and over.
Yeah, that loop.
He'd mentally rehearse, confronting the person in a way he wished he could have, maybe standing up for himself. He controlled the narrative in his mind just enough to get through the flashback without being totally consumed by it.
Interesting. Like rewriting the script internally.
And Mike, who got really angry and felt rejected after his girlfriend hung up on him during a fight, he had a plan for when he felt that rage building. He went straight out and got a haircut.
A haircut, yeah.
A simple, neutral activity that occupied his time and attention long enough for that intense wave of anger to subside. Then he could call her back later and talk things through more calmly, without saying things he'd regret.
These examples really show that distraction isn't about pretending the pain isn't there, is it?
Not at all. It's about creating just enough space, just enough time for the intensity of the pain to diminish naturally which it always does eventually, so you can then make a different choice, a more constructive choice, than simply reacting impulsively from that peak emotion.
Okay, distraction makes sense as a short-term survival tool. What else?
Another really powerful set of skills falls under self-soothing techniques. These work by using your five senses to directly calm your nervous system when it's all revved up by intense emotion.
Soothing through the senses, like what?
Okay, let's go through them. Vision. Look at visually pleasing things, maybe beautiful pictures, nature scenes, photos of loved ones, art you enjoy. Watch a visually calming video, like nature footage.
Okay, hearing.
Listen to soothing music, classical, ambient, whatever works for you. Calming podcasts, the sources specifically suggest avoiding upsetting content like angry talk radio or stressful news, and opting for more neutral things like storytelling or educational podcasts. Even just the sound of nature or listening to someone with a calm voice can be regulating.
Right, smell.
Pleasant scents can be very grounding. Light a scented candle you like, use aromatherapy oils, smell fresh flowers or baking bread. Even just putting on a favorite lotion or perfume or hugging someone whose scent is comforting.
Okay. Taste.
Enjoy a favorite food or drink mindfully. Really savor the flavor, the texture. A warm cup of non-caffeinated tea, a piece of good chocolate. Slowly enjoyed.
And touch.
Touch is huge for calming. Take a warm bath or shower, wrap yourself in a soft blanket, wear comfortable clothes, get a massage, or even just rub lotion into your hands. Petting an animal fits here too.
Temperature was mentioned too, something about cold.
Yes, the sources mention using temperature, specifically cold. It triggers something called the mammalian diving response, which can reflexively slow your heart rate and calm you down. This could involve briefly splashing your face with very cold water, or holding an ice cube or a cold pack in your hands or against your skin for a short time.
Okay, but there was a caution with that.
A very important one. They strongly caution checking with a doctor first if you have any heart conditions, blood pressure issues, or other relevant medical concerns before trying the cold water techniques, as it can affect circulation.
Got it. Safety first. So engaging your senses in these comforting ways helps physically calm the body's stress response.
Exactly. It helps regulate the physiological response to distress, bringing your nervous system back towards a more grounded, balanced state. It's a direct way to intervene when you feel physically agitated.
What about thoughts? Can we use thoughts to cope?
Yes, absolutely. Using coping thoughts or affirmations is another valuable skill here. These are realistic, often compassionate statements you can repeat to yourself internally to help you weather the storm of intense emotion.
Like positive self-talk.
It can be, but it needs to feel believable to you in that moment. Sometimes overly positive statements feel false when you're distressed. It's often more about realistic reassurance and acceptance.
Okay, like what? Can you give some examples?
Sure, examples provided in the material include things like, "This feeling is really intense right now, but it won't last forever." Or, "I've survived difficult feelings like this before. I can get through this one too."
Reminding yourself of your resilience.
Yes. Or the classic, "This too shall pass." Or something focusing on acceptance. "My feelings are making me uncomfortable, but I can accept them without needing to act on them right now."
It's okay to feel this way. Feelings aren't facts. That seems useful.
Very useful. Or, "My thoughts are just thoughts. They don't control my life unless I let them." The idea is to find phrases that resonate with you, that feel supportive and true enough in the moment.
And maybe write them down.
Definitely. Writing them down on cards, putting them on your phone, keeping them visible somewhere. That can really help you access them when your mind is racing and it's hard to think clearly during distress.
Okay, one more thing related to distress tolerance you mentioned was the feeling threat balance, FTB cope.
Right, the feeling threat balance, FTB cope. This is a quick mental check-in you can do. It involves assessing two things on a scale, maybe 1 to 10.
Okay.
First, rate the intensity of your emotion right now. How strong is that fear, anger, sadness? Give it a number. Second, rate the actual level of objective threat or danger in the situation you're in. Real stiffly, how dangerous is this right now? Give that a number.
So feeling intensity versus actual threat level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now compare the two numbers. Is there a significant gap between them?
Or, for example, my fear is an 8 out of 10, but the actual danger is maybe a 1 or 2.
Precisely. If there's a big gap like that, it's a strong clue that your intense emotion is likely being fueled by emotional reasoning.
Emotional reasoning. That's the thinking error where you believe that because you feel something strongly, it must be true.
Yes, I feel terrified, therefore this situation must be incredibly dangerous. Or, I feel overwhelmingly guilty, therefore I must have done something awful. even if the objective facts don't support it.
So the feeling threat balance helps you spot when your feelings might be out of proportion.
Exactly. The bigger the gap between your feeling intensity and the objective threat level, the stronger the signal that your emotion might be an overreaction based on past experiences or thinking patterns, rather than an accurate reflection of the current reality.
Oh, and that tells you.
It tells you there's much more reason to use a coping skill to manage the emotion itself, rather than acting impulsively on the emotion as if it were an accurate signal of danger or necessity. It's a reality check that helps you choose coping over reacting.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So moving beyond just surviving the intense moments with distress tolerance, how do we work on understanding and regulating our emotions more broadly, day to day?
That's the next crucial step. Moving from just getting through the peaks to actively understanding the landscape. The sources define emotions quite simply. They're signals, like your body's instant news service, reporting on what's happening internally and in your environment.
Signals. Okay, and there are different kinds, primary and secondary.
Yes. There are primary emotions, which are your first automatic, often very quick reactions to an event. Think of things like surprise, joy, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, the immediate hit.
Got it. And secondary emotions.
Those are your emotional reactions to your primary emotions, or to your thoughts about the primary emotions. They're often layered on top.
Like feeling ashamed because you felt angry, or feeling hopeless because you felt sad, or maybe anxious about feeling anxious.
Exactly. Those are perfect examples. We judge our primary feelings and then have another feeling about them. This can create complex emotional tangles.
So how do we untangle that? How do we understand these signals better?
The sources offer a really helpful structure for analyzing past emotional situations. It helps you map out the whole chain reaction, like connecting the dots.
Okay, what's the structure?
It goes like this. You identify the triggering event, then the primary feelings you had, then any secondary feelings that followed, then the thoughts that arose alongside those feelings and the actions you took or urges you had, and finally, the short-term and long-term consequences of those actions.
Event, primary feeling, secondary feeling, thoughts, actions, consequences.
Okay, mapping it out like this helps you see the links clearly. They gave an example of Ling. The event was her husband coming home drunk.
Okay, triggering event.
Her primary feeling was anger, but that quickly led to secondary feelings of hopelessness, this will never change, and shame. What's wrong with Mayus?
Anger, hopelessness, and shame. Got it.
Her thoughts were things like, this is unbearable, he'll never change, I can't stand this. Her actions included locking herself in the bathroom, unfortunately engaging in self-harm, and later yelling intensely at her husband.
Okay, actions driven by those intense feelings and thoughts.
And the consequences. Short-term, maybe some release, but also injury. Long-term, she overslept the next day due to the emotional exhaustion and distress, received discipline at work for being late, putting her job at risk, and likely further damaging the communication with her husband.
Wow. Laying it out like that really shows the whole cascade.
It does. Analyzing past situations this way helps you identify your own common patterns. You start to see how certain events reliably trigger specific emotional and thought sequences, and how those tend to lead to particular actions with predictable consequences.
And seeing the pattern gives you power to change it.
Exactly. It highlights potential points where you could intervene differently next time. Maybe use a distress-tolerant skill right when that primary anger hits, or challenge the hopeless thoughts, or choose a different, more constructive action instead of yelling or self-harm.
Okay, that's really practical. The sources also mention how emotions can reinforce behaviors, both good and bad.
Yes, that's another important piece. Emotions act as consequences that can make a behavior more or less likely to happen again. Sometimes this is helpful.
Like the example of Phil helping his friend Stefan move.
Right. Phil felt that rush of warmth, connection, and happiness afterwards, positive emotions. That feeling positively reinforces his helpful behavior, making him more likely to help again in the future.
Makes sense. But it can reinforce self-destructive behaviors too.
Unfortunately, yes. The sources told the story of Carissa. Her primary feeling, maybe from past trauma or hurt, was intense pain.
Okay.
This led to a secondary feeling of resentment and thoughts like, he doesn't understand my pain, he needs to feel as bad as I did.
Oh dear.
Acting on this by, say, deliberately trying to provoke her husband or make him suffer might have provided a very brief, maybe distorted sense of relief or control, or even a perverse kind of justice in that moment, a temporary emotional reward.
But that reward reinforces the harmful action.
Exactly. It reinforces the behavior of lashing out or trying to inflict pain, even though the long-term consequences for her well-being and the relationship are clearly negative. It creates a destructive cycle driven by seeking that fleeting emotional shift.
So this raises a really important question. If emotions can reinforce these harmful patterns, how do we break those cycles? How do we build healthier ones?
A really foundational step, something that supports all the other skills, is reducing your physical vulnerability to overwhelming emotions.
Physical vulnerability. You mean like being tired or sick?
Precisely. Your physical state has a massive impact on your emotional state. Think about it. Trying to manage intense feelings when you're physically depleted or hungry or in pain. It's incredibly difficult, right?
Yeah.
Everything feels harder. Your fuse is shorter.
Yeah, definitely. Hanger is real.
Hanger is totally real. So the sources detail some key physical factors to pay attention to, often using acronyms like Please Master. But the core elements are:
What, when, and how you eat really matters. Big sugar spikes followed by crashes destabilize your mood. Skipping meals does too. And obviously, using food destructively, like binging or restricting, has major emotional consequences. Eating balanced meals regularly helps stabilize things.
Okay, food is fuel. What else?
Caffeine. While a morning coffee is fine for many, too much caffeine can induce anxiety, jitters, irritability, and disrupt sleep. And caffeine withdrawal can also make you feel awful emotionally. Being mindful of your intake is important.
Right. Alcohol and drugs.
Alcohol drugs. These are often used to self-medicate or escape difficult feelings, but it's a trap. Regular use leads to tolerance, needing more for the same effect, dependence, and potentially dangerous withdrawal symptoms, all of which profoundly mess with your emotional stability. They offer a temporary escape with incredibly high long-term costs to mental and physical health.
Exercise.
Exercise. So important. It's not just for physical health. It's a crucial positive outlet for stress, tension, frustration, and pent-up energy. It also releases endorphins and other chemicals that naturally boost your mood. The sources even mention things like high-intensity interval training, HIIT, as a way to constructively use intense physical energy.
But check with a doctor first.
Always. Especially before starting any intense new exercise routines. But regular moderate exercise is generally beneficial for emotional regulation. Sleep. Absolutely essential. Getting enough good quality sleep, ideally 7-8 hours for most adults, is critical for emotional balance, clear thinking, and coping capacity. Irregular sleep schedules or chronic sleep deprivation makes everything feel harder and emotions much more volatile. Having a consistent sleep schedule and a relaxing bedtime routine is key.
And finally, illness or pain.
Illness, physical pain. There is a direct, undeniable link between physical discomfort and emotional distress. Being sick or living with chronic pain significantly impacts your mood and your ability to manage other stressors. Getting proper medical care and managing physical ailments as best as possible is crucial for supporting your emotional well-being.
So taking care of your basic physical needs, eating well, managing substances, moving your body, sleeping enough, addressing illness, builds a stronger foundation. Makes you less vulnerable to being knocked over by intense emotions.
Exactly. It increases your resilience. You're starting from a stronger baseline.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful. So we've talked about why fighting feelings often backfires. We've explored acceptance and mindfulness as ways to observe our inner world differently with less judgment. We've covered distress tolerance skills for surviving the intense peaks.
Right.
And we've looked at understanding our emotional patterns and reducing physical vulnerability. But all of this seems to be leading towards something bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do we actually use this calmer, more aware state to live a life that feels meaningful, making choices that align with what we truly care about, even when those difficult feelings inevitably show up?
Yes, exactly. This is where it all comes together. This brings us to making wise choices and living your values.
Wise choices.
Okay.
The sources introduce a really crucial concept here: wise mind.
Wise mind. What's that?
Think of it as the sweet spot, the integration point between your emotional mind and your reasonable mind.
Okay, emotional mind is ruled by feelings, urges, immediate reactions. Yes. Intense emotions, impulsive actions. And reasonable mind is cool, logical, analytical, ruled by facts, planning, rational thought.
And we often swing between those two.
Yeah.
All emotion or all logic.
Very often, yes. We might act purely on a wave of anger or fear, emotional mind, or we might try to make decisions based only on cold, hard facts, ignoring our intuition or the emotional impact on ourselves or others, reasonable mind.
Neither feels quite right on its own.
Usually not. Wise mind, the sources suggest, is the integration of both. It's where you can access your logical thinking and your intuitive knowing, your rational analysis and your gut feelings, your head and your heart. Wise decisions come from this balanced place.
Can you give an example of not being in wise mind?
Sure, they gave examples of people being ruled solely by their emotional mind. Like Leo, who had one bad day at his successful sales job, felt completely overwhelmed and inadequate,
Emotional mind takes over.
and impulsively quit on the spot. No planning, no considering alternatives, just pure reaction to the feeling. Or Takesha, who had a few disappointing dating experiences, felt really discouraged and afraid of being hurt again,
Emotional mind again.
and decided to give up on dating entirely, concluding, "It's hopeless, I'll always be alone." She ignored the factual reality that she was a likable person with good friends, letting the fear dictate her choice.
So balancing with reasonable mind would have looked different.
Definitely. Leo might have acknowledged the overwhelm emotion, but used reason to plan vacation, talk to his boss, or explore stress management rather than quitting. Takesha might have acknowledged her fear and disappointment emotion, but used reason to consider alternative dating approaches, talk to friends for support, or focus on building confidence, rather than making a sweeping generalization based on limited data.
How do you know if you're in wise mind, though? Sometimes a strong emotion can feel like deep intuition. How do you tell the difference?
That's a great question. Wise mind tends to feel different. It usually feels calmer, more grounded, centered, stable. There's often a sense of inner knowing, a quiet confidence. It doesn't typically feel urgent, panicky, desperate, or driven by rigid rules, "I must do this," or irrational hope, "this has to work out." It feels like it takes all the available information, thoughts, feelings, facts, intuition into account.
Okay, a sense of inner calm and clarity.
Often, yes. It takes practice to recognize it. Now, once you can access wise mind more often and navigate your inner world with more acceptance and less struggle, the next crucial piece is figuring out what actually motivates you beyond just feeling good or avoiding feeling bad. What gives your life direction?
And this is where values come in.
This is exactly where values come in. The sources define values as your heart's deepest desires for how you want to live your life.
How you want to interact with the world, with other people, with yourself.
Yes. They are your personal guiding principles, the qualities of action you want to embody, what you want your life to stand for deep down.
Okay, and there's an important distinction they make between values and goals.
A really important one. Values are like ongoing directions. Think of choosing to head north on a compass. It's a direction you continuously move in.
You never actually arrive at north, you just keep heading that way.
Exactly. Values are lived in the process, moment by moment, through your actions. Goals, on the other hand, are specific, achievable endpoints or destinations you might reach while heading in your valued direction.
Like crossing a particular river or climbing a specific mountain while you're generally heading north.
Perfect analogy. You can achieve a goal, cross it off your list, you reach the destination, but you can never achieve a value like you achieve a goal. You just keep living it or you stop living it.
Can you give some examples of values versus goals?
Sure. A value might be being a loving and supportive partner. A related goal might be getting married or going on a date night once a week. You achieve the goal, but the value of being loving is something you live continuously through your actions.
Okay. If you get married but stop acting lovingly, you've achieved the goal but abandoned the value.
Precisely. Another example, a value could be applying yourself diligently and learning at work. Related goals might be getting a specific promotion or completing a training course.
Or the value of contributing to my community. The goal might be volunteering 10 hours this month or organizing a neighborhood cleanup.
Exactly. Or taking care of my physical health value versus losing 10 pounds or running a 5K race goals. The goals serve the value, but the value is the underlying direction, the why.
So the key is identifying your core values. What really matters to you.
Yes. Across different areas of your life, relationships, partner, family, friends, work, career, education, personal growth, health, well-being, community involvement, spirituality, leisure. What qualities do you want to embody? What kind of person do you aspire to be in these areas, regardless of whether it feels easy or hard? What do you want your life to stand for?
That takes a reflection.
It does. But once you have more clarity on your values, the real power comes in committed action.
Committed action. Taking steps.
Taking concrete steps, even very small ones that move you in the direction of your chosen values. Intentionally acting in ways that are consistent with what matters most to you.
And the sources emphasize you don't have to wait.
Crucially, no. You don't have to wait until you feel motivated. You don't have to wait until your anxiety disappears or your sadness lifts or you achieve some big goal first. You can take a small, values-consistent action right now, today, with whatever thoughts and feelings are present.
So you can feel unmotivated but still choose to act in a motivated way, consistent with your value of diligence. You can feel anxious but still act courageously, consistent with your value of connection.
Precisely. You choose to act like the person you want to be, aligned with your values, even if your mind and body are screaming something different in that moment. Your actions define you more than your feelings do.
Okay, but what stops us? Our minds, right? They throw up barriers.
Oh, constantly. The main barrier to committed action is often that relentless stream of excuses, rationalizations, justifications, and predictions our minds generate.
It's too hard. I don't feel like it right now. I'm not ready yet. What's the point? I'll probably just fail anyway. I'll do it tomorrow.
All those greatest hits from radio doom and gloom, they sound so convincing sometimes.
So how do we know if it's a real obstacle or just mind stuff?
The sources offer a simple but really powerful test for distinguishing between a genuine barrier and just a thought-based excuse. They call it the kidnap question.
The kidnap question.
Okay, sounds dramatic.
It is, to make the point. Imagine someone you love more than anything in the world. Your child, your partner, your best friend has been kidnapped. Their life depends entirely, 100%, on you taking this specific values-consistent action you're currently hesitating about. Could you do it? Even with the difficult feeling you have, even with the reason your mind is giving you it's too hard, I'm too tired. Could you take that step if their life was on the line?
Wow, okay. Usually the answer would be yes, right? If it was truly life or death for someone I love. Almost always yes. And if the answer is yes, then that reason your mind was giving you, it's too hard, I'm too tired, I might fail, is likely just an excuse, a thought, not a genuine, insurmountable obstacle. It feels real because we're fused with the thought, we believe it implicitly, without question.
So that question helps create some distance, some diffusion from the excuse.
Exactly. It shows you that the thought isn't necessarily true or binding. And this is where those diffusion techniques we talked about earlier come back into play, specifically for these reason-giving thoughts that block action.
Like naming the story.
Yes. You can simply notice and label the thought, there's the too hard story showing up again. Or you can thank your mind, maybe even humorously. Thanks, mind. Really helpful suggestion. Appreciate you trying to keep me safe, comfortable, but I'm choosing to do this anyway. Or just notice it as another broadcast from Radio Doom and Gloom playing the What's the Point track today, I see.
The goal isn't to argue with the thought or make it go away.
No, just to observe it without letting it dictate your behavior. You notice the excuse-making thought, and you choose to take the small, values-consistent step anyway. You let the thought be there, but you don't let it drive the bus.
Okay. Is there anything else that can help bridge that gap between knowing your values and actually doing the actions, especially when it feels challenging?
Yes. Another powerful skill the sources mention is cognitive rehearsal.
Cognitive rehearsal? Like mental practice?
Exactly. It involves mentally walking yourself through taking the valued action, especially in a situation you anticipate being difficult. You imagine the scene, you anticipate the challenging thoughts, feelings, or urges that are likely to pop up.
And then you mentally practice using your coping skills, your mindfulness, your diffusion, your acceptance.
Precisely. You practice navigating those internal obstacles in your mind before the actual situation occurs.
Could you give some examples?
Sure. The sources describe Jared mentally practicing having a calm, validating conversation with his wife about a really sensitive topic. He anticipated his usual urge to get defensive and angry, and instead he mentally practiced listening mindfully, validating her feelings even if he disagreed, and using I statements.
So he rehearsed a different response.
Yes. Or Ricardo, who dreaded stressful work deadlines. He mentally rehearsed using mindful breathing techniques right before the deadline hit, anticipating the surge of anxiety and practicing bringing his attention back to his breath over and over in his mind.
Preparing for the anxiety.
And Arden, who often got hurt by perceived slights from friends. She mentally practiced accepting the feeling of hurt after imagining a friend seeming cold or distant, rehearsing coping thoughts like, this feeling is uncomfortable, but okay.
Yeah.
And reminding herself not to jump to conclusions.
So this mental walkthrough, this cognitive rehearsal, it builds confidence, makes it more likely you'll actually respond differently in the real moment.
Exactly. It builds familiarity and confidence, kind of like practicing lines before a play. It prepares you neurologically and psychologically to act in line with your values, even when the internal storm hits.
Okay, this is tying together nicely. Living a valued life involves managing our inner world and taking action. And inevitably, that involves our relationships with other people, right?
Absolutely. You can't really live a valued life in isolation for most people. Our values often involve connection, contribution, kindness, all relational. And our internal world, our emotions, thoughts, avoidance patterns profoundly impacts how we show up in our interactions with others.
So the skills need to extend outwards too.
Yes. The sources offer valuable insights into interpersonal effectiveness skills. This is all about how to navigate relationships effectively, how to ask for what you need, how to say no to requests you don't want to meet, and how to manage conflict or disagreement.
While still maintaining your self-respect and respecting the other person.
Yeah.
And hopefully strengthening the relationship or at least not damaging it unnecessarily.
That's the goal, finding that balance.
What gets in the way? Why is this often so hard?
Well, sometimes it's simply a lack of knowing the skills themselves. We just haven't learned effective ways to communicate assertively.
Okay, a skill deficit.
Another huge block is being hijacked by high emotion in the moment. If you're overwhelmed by anger, fear, or shame, it's almost impossible to communicate effectively. That's why the distress tolerance and emotion regulation skills we discussed earlier are often prerequisites. You need to calm the storm inside first.
Right, get into wise mind before trying to talk.
Exactly. And perhaps one of the most powerful blocks, according to the sources, are the worry thoughts or myths we believe about relationships and interpersonal interactions. These ingrained beliefs hold us back from acting effectively.
Relationship myths. Like what?
Let's debunk a few key ones they mention.
If I need something, or if I ask for help, there's something wrong with me. It means I'm weak or inadequate.
Oh yeah, that's a common one, the rugged individualism myth.
Right. But the reality is, needing things, support, help, connection is a fundamental part of the human condition. We are inherently interdependent beings. A healthier thought is, I have a right to want things and ask for help when I need it. It's normal.
Okay, myth two?
Myth two. I won't be able to stand it if the other person gets mad at me or says no or disapproves.
Fear of conflict or rejection.
Big time. But the reality is, you can tolerate discomfort and difficult emotions, including someone else's negative reaction. Their reaction is often more about them, their history, their mood, their own issues, than about you. And you can handle feeling uncomfortable. A healthier thought. I can handle their reaction, even if I don't like it.
Right. Myth three.
Myth three. It's selfish or demanding to say no to requests or to ask for things I want.
Feeling guilty for having needs or boundaries.
Yes. The reality is, your needs, wants, and boundaries are just as valid and important as anyone else's. Setting limits and asking for what you need is healthy and necessary for good relationships. A healthier thought. It's normal and healthy to ask for things and to say no sometimes. It's about mutual respect.
Okay, one more.
Myth four. I have no control over anything in this relationship or situation.
Feeling completely powerless.
Which leads to passivity or helplessness. The reality is, you always have control over your own behavior, your own choices, and how you choose to respond, even if you can't control the other person's actions or the ultimate outcome. Focusing on what you can control your own actions is empowering.
Countering these myths is a big step. What skills help us act effectively once we challenge the myths?
It starts with bringing mindfulness into interactions. Mindful attention in relationships means really tuning in to the other person.
Not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. Truly paying attention to their words, their tone of voice, their body language, their facial expressions, asking clarifying questions to make sure you understand. Can you tell me more about that? Or how are you feeling about this situation? Really listening to understand, not just to reply.
Okay. And when it's time to speak up for ourselves?
The sources strongly advocate for assertive communication as the effective middle ground.
Not passive, where your needs get ignored and you build resentment.
Right. And not aggressive,
right,
where you might get your way, but you steamroll the other person, damage the relationship, or violate their self-respect.
Exactly. Assertiveness respects both yourself and the other person. It's about expressing your needs, feelings, and opinions honestly and directly, while still being respectful of the other person's perspective.
Okay, how do you do that? Is there a formula?
They provide a helpful structure for crafting an assertive statement or a gentle request. It often involves several components, though you don't always need all of them.
1. Describe. Start by stating the objective facts of the situation, without judgment, blame, or exaggeration. When X happened, or I noticed that. Just the observable behavior.
Facts, not interpretations. Got it.
2, express feelings. Clearly state how you feel using I feel why statements. This is crucial. Transform blaming you statements like, you make me so upset, or you're being inconsiderate into mindful I statements about your own internal experience.
So you make me upset becomes...
Maybe, I feel really upset and hurt when X happens, or I feel frustrated when it owns your feeling without attacking the other person.
Okay. Describe, express, what's next?
3, assert. Clearly and simply state what you want or need. Ask for a specific behavioral change if possible. Focus on one thing at a time, don't overload them, and using softeners can help sometimes, like, would you be willing to, or I would really appreciate it if you could.
Asking for what you want, clearly and respectfully.
4, reinforce. Briefly explain the positive consequence for them, for you, or for the relationship if your request is met. Why it would be helpful, like, this would really help me feel calmer and more connected, or I think this would help us avoid misunderstandings in the future, or simply, I would really appreciate it, an appreciation statement.
Showing the positive outcome. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
5, this is optional but can be helpful, sometimes just for yourself. Mindful. Briefly state, maybe just internally, how you will take care of yourself or manage the situation if you don't get what you want. It reminds you that you can cope even if the outcome isn't ideal.
Describe, express, assert, reinforce, mindful. That's a solid framework.
It is. And complementing this is assertive listening. It's not just about speaking assertively, but also listening assertively.
What does that mean, listening assertively?
It means actively trying to understand the other person's perspective, their feelings, their wants, their position, especially if you disagree with them. Really trying to see the situation from their side.
Without getting defensive or planning your counter-argument.
Exactly. The sources point out common blocks to listening. Things like mind reading, I already know what they're going to say, what they really mean. Rehearsing your response while they're still talking so you're not actually hearing them. Or filtering only hearing the parts that confirm your own viewpoint or interest and ignoring the rest. Assertive listening requires setting those aside.
Okay. Are there specific techniques for handling particularly difficult conversations when things get tense?
Yes, the sources offer several useful techniques. One is mutual validation. This involves explicitly acknowledging that both points of view are valid from each person's perspective, even if they differ.
Like, I can see why you're concerned about X. That makes sense given your experience, and from my side, I'm needing Y because...
Perfect example. It validates their reality without requiring you to agree with it, and makes space for your reality too. It lowers defensiveness.
Okay. What else? The broken record?
Yes. The broken record technique. This is useful when the other person isn't hearing you, keeps trying to deflect, argue irrelevant points, or manipulate you. You calmly, firmly, and persistently repeat your core request or statement, like a broken record, without getting drawn into side arguments.
Like the example of Sam needing his neighbor Bill to cut a tree branch hanging over his roof.
Exactly. Bill keeps making excuses. I'm busy. It's not that bad. Why are you making a fuss? Sam just calmly repeats, the branch is over my roof, Bill, and it needs to come down. Over and over, politely but firmly.
Persistent and focused. Okay. What about probing?
Probing involves asking gentle, clarifying questions to try and understand the other person's perspective better, especially when you're receiving vague criticism or feeling attacked.
So if someone says, you're just not pulling your weight around here, instead of getting defensive...
You could probe with something like, can you tell me more about that? Or what specifically about my contribution concerns you? Or what is it about my work that bothers you? It invites specifics instead of staying at the level of global criticism.
Turning an attack into a request for information. Clever. And clouding.
Clouding is a technique for diffusing criticism by finding some small part of it you can agree with, even just in principle, without agreeing with the overall negative judgment. It neutralizes the attack somewhat.
So if someone says, you're always so negative and critical.
You might cloud it by saying something like, you know, it's true, there are definitely times I find myself getting irritated or pointing out problems. You're agreeing with a small grain of truth, sometimes I get irritated, without agreeing with the absolute, always negative and critical. It takes the wind out of their sails a bit.
Acknowledging a sliver without accepting the whole judgment.
Okay.
And assertive delay.
Assertive delay is crucial when emotions are running high, either yours or theirs. It's about giving yourself permission to not respond immediately, buying time to think, calm down, and consult your wise mind.
Saying something like, that's a really important point, and I need some time to think about it before I respond properly, or I'm feeling pretty emotional right now. Can we pause this conversation and come back to it in an hour tomorrow?
Exactly. It prevents impulsive reactions you might regret. It's a perfectly assertive thing to do.
Okay. And modulating intensity, adjusting how strong you are.
Right. Modulating intensity just means adjusting how forcefully or persistently you make your request based on the situation. How important is this issue to you? What are the potential consequences of asking versus not asking? How vulnerable are you in this situation? How likely is the other person to respond positively?
Yeah.
You might be gentler in some situations, more firm in others.
Using your judgment.
Using your wise mind to gauge the situation. And like all these skills, the sources emphasize that interpersonal effectiveness requires practice. It feels awkward at first.
Probably need to review interactions afterwards.
Definitely. They suggest using tools like communication checklists after a difficult interaction. Ask yourself, did I describe the facts or use judgments? Did I use I statements or blaming you statements? Did I listen effectively? What worked? What didn't? Use that analysis to learn and plan for future interactions.
Like the example of Claire and Laura, that seemed to tie things together.
It did. Claire wanted an expensive dress. Emotion mind calling. But she accessed her wise mind, checked her budget, reasonable mind input, and decided against the purchase, sticking to her value of financial responsibility.
Okay, managing her inner world first.
Then, when her friend Laura criticized her decision, why didn't you buy it? You deserve it. Instead of getting defensive or passively agreeing, Claire used an assertive I statement. I felt a bit hurt and put down when you teased me about my decision.
Owning her feeling without attacking Laura.
Right. It shows how managing your internal world effectively first, using wise mind for the purchase decision, empowers you to navigate the external interaction, the relationship challenge, much more effectively, using assertive communication about the teasing. It all connects.
Wow. Okay. We have really covered a lot of ground today. It feels like we've taken a truly deep dive into this whole idea that finding peace isn't about achieving some mythical state of perfect, calm, happy feelings all the time.
No, definitely not. It's about learning to relate differently to the full spectrum of our emotional experience, the comfortable and the uncomfortable.
We've explored why that common instinct to fight our feelings, to try and wrestle them into submission, often backfires and ends up being the source of so much of our suffering, costing us energy, connection, opportunities.
And we've seen how acceptance and mindfulness offer a powerful alternative, especially that idea of the observing self, the sky to our changing weather, how they can help create space and distance from our thoughts and feelings.
Allowing us to just observe them without layering on judgment, without getting completely hooked and dragged around by them, learning to just let them be there.
And then we unpacked a whole toolkit of practical skills. Distress tolerance skills like rest, distraction, self-soothing, coping thoughts, the FTB cope, to help us ride out those really intense emotional waves without making things worse.
Techniques to better understand and regulate our emotions more generally by mapping out those event, feeling, thought, action chains, and by taking care of our fundamental physical foundation to reduce vulnerability.
And critically, how to make choices guided by wise mind, that balance of feeling and reason. How to clarify what truly matters to us, our values, and then take committed action towards those values step by step, even when our minds are full of excuses or difficult feelings are present.
Using diffusion and cognitive rehearsal to help us bridge that gap between intention and action.
And finally, how managing our inner landscape directly impacts our relationships. Exploring those assertive communication skills, asking, saying no, handling conflict grounded in mindful awareness and respect for ourselves and others, and challenging those unhelpful myths that keep us stuck.
So if we had to distill it all down, the key takeaway from this whole journey, from all these insights we've explored, what would it be?
I think it's this. Finding peace isn't about finally achieving perfect feelings. It's not about eliminating anxiety, sadness, anger, or fear from your life. That's probably not possible or even desirable. They're all signals.
Right.
Peace comes from learning to live a rich, full, and meaningful life with whatever feelings show up along the way. It's about building a life that matters to you, even in the presence of discomfort.
It's about choosing action based on your values, not your fleeting feelings. It's about practicing self-compassion, especially when you stumble, and maybe constantly remembering that core idea.
That you are the sky, not the weather. You are the observer, the container, capable of holding whatever thoughts and feelings pass through without being defined or destroyed by them.
That feels hopeful. Powerful. Okay, so with that, here's a final provocative thought for everyone listening to maybe sit with. Knowing what's truly important to you deep down. What is one small values-consistent action you could take today, maybe even right now, or in the next hour? Even with that difficult thought or feeling still present, just one small step in a direction that matters.
A great question to carry forward. Until next time.